everybody. Welcome back to the 5 O'Clock Sweats podcast, the podcast where we like to talk about the things we like to do when we're not on the clock working. Tonight, I'm joined by my handsome buddy.
Oh, you're talking about me? Are you talking about me?
Who else will I be talking about?
It's me. Yeah, Chris.
And tonight, Chris and I have been grinding a new game that's come out over the last couple weeks. We did talk about this game in a previous episode where we were talking about some games that we were looking forward to playing, and the game has come. It's released. We've been playing it, and I love it. Chris, I think you love it too.
Yeah, love is a strong word, but it's definitely up there. I think we should tell the listeners and viewers that what game we're going to talk about.
No, I think we should just talk about it without mentioning the title. That is Space Marine 2, the Warhammer 40K game that takes place in the Warhammer 40K universe. And me, and I think Chris, you as well, but like many other people, this is that's my first foray into the Warhammer universe. I really don't know anything about Warhammer. I didn't know anything about Warhammer prior to playing this game. The beautiful thing was like you didn't really need to know much. You kind of just were able to jump in and kind of pick up the pieces as you go. But if you had any exposure to the Warhammer universe prior to playing this game?
So it actually kind of confused me at first, but the only knowledge I have of Warhammer was like way back in the day. I'm talking like elementary school, maybe early middle school, when I actually wanted to play Warhammer, which like the real tabletop game, with the figurines and stuff, because I always thought it was cool that you could have like a legitimate like army of them and like painting them and like customizing them. So I always thought that was really cool. Never actually got into it because it's one of those things that seems really great as a kid, but then it's like that sounds pretty daunting. I don't have like a dedicated space to paint things, nor am I any good at that. So no, never got into that. But then saw some of the games in the last few years, but again, I was like, I don't know, maybe not my thing. And then we had talked about this on a previous episode, like you mentioned, and I think it benefited, at least for me, from the time of year that it came out, which is like a September release is nice because it kind of fits right in between kind of like any like Call of Duty stuff that's coming out. So it was like a chance to try something new, and the reviews were like super positive, like, from the jump. So, that kind of convinced me. And I know you and I were sort of going back and forth, like, should we just pre-order it to play it a couple days early? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I had a gift card, so I dropped the $100 plus tax on it to play a little early, and I got some cool DLC stuff, some gear I could put on my Space Marine. But before this game, my exposure was kind of similar to yours, where I had like peripherally, I've known about the tabletop game. I know about the figurines and painting them. I actually had a friend that used to be really into painting these things, and I don't know, I don't have the patience for that. So it's not really my forte. And I do hear it is a very expensive hobby. But nonetheless, this was my first foray. But I will say, after playing the game, I've looked up a couple of lore videos and whatnot. I'm no Warhammer expert. I'm not even at the tip of the iceberg. But I am interested in the universe as a whole, and there's some things about it that like really intrigue me. I mean, I do love sci-fi. This is like just sci-fi mixed with like fantasy, and it's a good blend of some things that generally I'm interested in. It's got kind of like sort of some Halo vibes to it a little bit. Definitely some Gears of War vibes just from the art style and aesthetically. So, I mean, just watching gameplay of this game prior to release, the trailers, like, it just looked like a game that I would love. And I know we watched some of the gameplay together, and I think it definitely intrigued both of us. Definitely gave us some of the Gears 1 vibes, just, again, from mainly, like, the gothic sort of art style that is present in the game.
It's very much up my alley from, like, an aesthetic standpoint. It's very dark. It's very gritty. And I can't help but like really love like the way that the armors look. It's
Oh
it's
man.
unlike any other, like, like Halo's got a unique armor style and everything. Like this
Hmm.
game, I think also has its own unique style to armor. And I do kind of like that aesthetic, sort of like Gears implemented, where it's like the characters are like just oversized and like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I don't know. It looks like you're powerful, and then when you play the game, it also reinforces that. So it's
Yeah.
fun to do that. I think the aesthetic, the gore too.
Oh my god.
I'm kind of like I can appreciate the over the top gore, uh, but it has to be kind of done right. You know what I mean? Because if it crosses a certain line, it kind of becomes comical. But I
Yeah.
think in this game, the gore is like at a great point where you just feel like you're just absolutely destroying everything, which is quite
Yeah.
frankly what you are doing.
Yeah.
But it just, I don't know, like visually the feedback is so great. It's like very stimulating, and I
Yeah.
think that's kind of what's interesting about it is, and we could talk about this a little bit more, maybe a little later in the episode, but it just has like an old school just kind of feel to it, where like you used to just
Hmm.
play games because they were fun, not for any specific kind of like grind, so to speak. And I think the
Yeah.
visual of this game really adds to that feeling, where it's like visually rewarding to play, to like go
Yeah.
into a room and then like you just come out covered in like dripping blood, and like there's
Yep.
just a bunch of, you know what I mean, like enemy carcasses laying around. Like it just, you just feel powerful.
Yeah. This game, unlike any other game that I've played recently, and I mean like the last few years, like you feel like the main character. Even if you're playing co-op with your friends, like you always will have like a main character moment, whether it's executing a warrior or catching one of those little Xenos out of the air with your sword or by the tail and you slam them into the ground. Like there's always like that very like cinematic and again main character sort of opportunity or part in the game, and it can happen at any time, which is great. I mean, the gameplay loop on paper seems like it could be repetitive and get boring, but it is pretty much the opposite, at least in my experience. I can't get enough of just like basically slicing through these enemies like a hot knife through butter. Like it is just so fun. And we were playing some co-op actually as of recording, yesterday or 2 days ago. We played a couple
Mhm.
hours, played some of the operations, and it was just so much fun. Like I had a blast just going through these enemies, and it's like the amount of enemies that are on screen is impressive. Like you are overwhelmed at times, but overcoming those odds and then just grinding it out with your buddies, even solo, is just very satisfying.
I will say this is the first time in a while. So, like that day that you're talking about a couple of days ago when we were playing, um, this is one of those games where you're playing and then all of a sudden 2-3 hours has just disappeared.
Yep.
And like you're not really sure where the hell it went.
Yep.
And this was the first time in a long time that I had to go to dinner actually that evening. I think we all had kind of something to
Yeah,
do.
we had
and,
stuff.
Yeah, and I was late because I lost track of time. Like
Yeah.
honestly, and I can't tell you the last time in the last few years that's really happened to me, where I've just totally become so immersed in a game that I've literally lost track of time.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe like way back at the beginning of like the COVID Warzone days when I would just put like hours and hours into that game. But
Mhm.
other than that, I really haven't had that feeling in a while. Plus, it's
Yeah.
nice to play with the boys. I think this is just one of those games where it's just like, just you and the guys, like you just like, again, you all feel powerful and you're just kind of going through just like, kind of just like fucking shit up together.
Yeah.
And it's just awesome.
No, yeah, it's great. I guess the only negative is that it's only you and two other friends. Like, I do wish there were more, but I get it. Like, three is probably the sweet spot, and
Mhm.
there is a lot going on. So we want the game to still run pretty well. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Like, this is the first game in a while, maybe probably since like early Apex Legends for me, where I can just keep playing and playing, and I'm like, oh, I'll play for like an hour, and then like it's an hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm like, oh well, I don't want to stop. And it is a great feeling. But this game isn't one of those games that like demands your time. Like
Mhm.
it's a game that purposefully was made to be put down and picked up at your convenience. Like there really is no like FOMO in this game. There's no like battle pass you have to progress through. Like a cool armor piece or set that is only available for like a certain amount of time. They have to grind to get. None of that's in there. I think this is a good transition to like what we like most about this game, and you kind of already hinted at it, and we already talked about this. And this is a sentiment that's been like going through the game, like the whole gaming sphere about this game, and it's that this game feels like a game that came out like in the golden age, like the 2006 to 2010 era of gaming, like the 360 era, the PlayStation 3 era. Like this game is just it feels that like nostalgia for me. First of all, it's just a game that released complete, which is a rarity these days. I can't even believe I couldn't even believe my eyes when I opened up the game. Oh, it's got a full campaign. It's got a full it's got other PvP or PvE experiences. It's got the operations, and then it has like a PvE experience that again isn't maybe the most robust PvE, but it's just damn fun. And it doesn't have that many maps, doesn't have that many game modes, but I'll be honest, like I'm having a blast with the PvE. That's probably
you meant the PvP.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the PvP. Yeah, sorry, the player versus player. That is, I mean, that's been the biggest surprise for me with how much I beat the campaign, and then I helped you beat it. We played a few of the operations, but most of my time in this game has gone into the PvE. PvE. I keep saying PvE. The PvP, which is just not what I was expecting when I bought this game. I didn't expect much from the PvP, but it's been not by far my favorite mode, but it's been the top mode I've spent the most time with. You agree.
I think like for me, there's two like big things that I really like about this game. One is it kind of reminds me of Destiny in the sense that what I always liked about Destiny. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a ton of bad shit about Destiny, but one of the things I really liked was the structure of the content. How there was like, plenty of PvE, but different PvE experiences, right? And then there was, a dedicated PvP as well. And they're like intermingled, but they're also like just separate enough that it's like you said, you don't feel overwhelmed like you have to like give this game all your time. You can just jump into each different activity as you want, hop out of it, go between the three different options, and it feels good. And the other thing is kind of like I said earlier, is the game just wants you to have fun. It's not, at least I don't feel like it's trying to sell me something. No. It's not trying to, push or promote certain like, cosmetic items in a store. There's no limited time events. Like, you're right. I don't feel like there's any time crunch. And in a way, that's how I lose track of time, is because I just feel like I can sort of play at my leisure and then pick and choose what activities I want to do. And kind of bounce between them. And, just because you don't play one activity as much doesn't mean that like you're at a super disadvantage. It all just kind of feels well balanced, and it feels like there's a lot to offer, even though on paper, like you said, it wouldn't seem like that. Yeah. Right. Like I actually, my concern going into the game was, is there going to be a lot of replayability here? Like, or is this a game where I'm just going to put, whatever, like 10-ish hours in and then probably like be done with it. But it's not, because, you can play the campaign, with friends. You could play it solo. Yeah. The missions were fun enough. They were unique enough. Yeah. That, I would replay them. And then of course, you have the operations, which different classes to use, right? So there, you can all kind of rotate between different classes, try different loadouts, things like that. Of course, there's, the grind to level each class and the weapons and the perks. So there's a lot of value there. And then, even within that, there's another layer of different difficulties, right? So challenging yourself, and I don't know, just the experience can keep going and going and going. And although there's only like 3 activities, there's so many layers kind of to each one. And then the PvP it's like a bunch of games that I've liked kind of crammed into one. Like, it does. It feels, it's got it's third person, so it's got a little bit of a Gears aesthetic. It feels kind of like Gears. I
think the movement's very Gears like this. Like, you can run a little bit, but your character kind of hulks around. They're not fast per se. Like the base movement feels very Gears-like. Obviously, there's no wall bouncing, no cover system or anything. So in that regard, it doesn't. But yeah, I definitely get Gears feels whenever I'm playing the PvP in like the best way.
Yeah, and the different classes are nice. I mean, gosh, there's so many games now that have a multiplayer with like a hero shooter, so to speak, and different classes. And some of the stuff feels spammy and kind of cringe. And there's nothing in my experience that I've played that feels like totally like it's being abused and it's like like teams are trolling you. Like it all feels like decently fun. But I will say my one knock on the PvP from what I've experienced is the matches are usually like totally lopsided.
Yeah,
I've not had any close matches. It's been like either a landslide one way or the other.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure this is official, but I don't think there was any SBMM in this. No skill-based matchmaking in this game, which is what the people have been praying for. Like X Defiant was sold as like no SBMM in our game, and that carried it for a little bit. But this game, because I have a similar experience. That's rare that we have like a close game. It's usually lopsided one way or the other. Some games are close, but I appreciate the diversity at least in like the results, because we've talked about SBMM in the past. I mean, it's probably the biggest the hottest topic in gaming and competitive and like multiplayer gaming still. People just want to relax after like working all day or like doing shit like dealing with life all day, and they don't want to have to like come home if they're going to play for an hour and sweat their ass off in a game that's supposed to be fun. Like they want to be able to have fun, not have to get their blood pressure raised because they're struggling to even like go positive or so I mean I appreciate the game for that, and that's another way this game feels like a game that came out like in the mid to late 2000s. It's just
it also as lopsided as my matches have been, it also kind of doesn't feel sweaty in a weird way. Like, no. And I guess that's just maybe I just don't take that experience very competitively, but it just doesn't really feel like I'm just kind of having fun, like trying out different classes, trying to play the objectives and doing weird shit with the teammates and you know what I mean? Like just
spamming voice lines.
Yeah, kind of flanking. Oh god, yeah, that is crazy.
It's so funny.
And then like however the match goes, it goes. I'm not sweating it kind of thing, which feels good for once. Because like you said, every other multiplayer experience is a freaking sweat fest. And maybe that's just because I care about some of those other things a little bit more. And maybe I'm more competitive in some of those other games. But as far as this is concerned, it's just kind of like fun, which is nice.
I don't think, like you touched on the classes, I don't think there is a class that is leaps and bounds better than the rest. I think they're all pretty balanced. If anything, I think maybe tactical, which is the class with the sonar, where you can scan enemies, it feels a little underpowered compared to like the grapple or like the assault that can jetpack into the air and slam down on you, which is pretty badass. But I mean that tactical guy is still useful. I mean, they're like, especially for like the sniper class, like it's a good counter to the sniper class, because that class you can literally go invisible and it's like a really effective camouflage ultimate. But you get hit with that thing and then you're visible to the enemy team. Like they can take you out pretty easily, and you have low shields as a sniper class. So I think it's balanced pretty well. I hope, my only worry with this is that I'd hope that I think Saber Interactive is the developer. Yeah, Saber Interactive. I hope they don't overthink like any buffs or nerfs for this game. Like, I'm sure there's people out there complaining about, assault's too powerful. Like, you shouldn't be able to go that high in the air, or like the slam damage should be nerfed, or like the hammer damage should be nerfed, or like the grapple distance should be nerfed. Like, I don't want this game to become like Helldivers, where like they nerfed all the fun shit. Like, I get like you have to balance maybe a little bit, maybe buff some of the weapons, but like I just don't want this game to suffer from getting over buffed or over nerfed in either way. I just think it's less is more in a game like this. Like, add more maps, add more game modes, maybe add another class if you want. I don't know. That's my biggest concern, and I don't know Saber Interactive's history really with this sort of thing. I guess that's just something that I'm thinking about now, and because the game is popular, and I just hope that like they don't succumb to like some of the people that are maybe complaining about certain classes being too powerful and decide to overcorrect.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a good word, is overcorrecting. I think too many developers nowadays, like, it's almost like what you started out with. It's almost like, remember when you were taking a test, right? They always said, like, if you're not sure, go with the first answer you had because it's usually the right one.
Or
like, without overthinking it. And I think a lot of devs do that. Helldivers being a very good example of like taking something that was received really well and just like making a bunch of bonehead decisions to like piss everyone off. This game, I mean, I don't get that vibe. I think it's clearly like not going to have like a very competitive PvP scene. No. Like, there's no like league for, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think
Space Marine League.
Exactly. From what I understand. So I don't think that's a direction they're going to go. I don't think they'll be heavy handed in like nerfing things. And, again, we talked about feeling powerful. If anything, it's better to, buff the one thing that's the outlier, in my opinion, rather than nerfing all the good things. Buff the thing that's not, where everything else is. So, yeah, that's a good point. I don't think that will be an issue. I would say maybe my biggest concern in the game is how quickly they can release content, because we said that, there is a lot of replayability, which is true, but I think that's for like the first few months. It's good. And I know they've released a roadmap, which, to be honest, I haven't looked at, but this is one of those games I think that will suffer if they're not just pumping content. And I don't mean DLC cosmetic crap. I'm talking about, new operations, missions, whatever it might be. There's a lot of things you can justify. And one of the things I actually thought about that would be pretty cool, in my opinion, is like, how like there's the story and then like the operations are supposed to be like what the other group was doing. Yeah. Kind of like simultaneously. Like, I think they should do a thing where it's like you get 6 people, like 2 squads kind of fulfilling those roles. And then like, at parts of the missions, you like meet up together. You know what I mean? And then like you have like 2 squads taking on a boss, and then you go back on your separate ways to continue with like whatever the missions might be individually. And then I think that would be a pretty neat.
That would be so cool.
This would be a game where I could feel like if you have like 6 people together, just absolutely DPSing some like freaky worm looking thing. You know what I mean? Like that's like an image I have in my head. Like, I think that would be dope. Kind of like you can do in Destiny at times, but
so I'm my only worry with that. And I'm sure they tested more players. There's so much happening on screen. I feel like this game specifically is pushing tech to the limit, especially visually. And again, with just the number of enemies and objects on the screen at a time, I'm not sure. I could see there being performance issues if, say, like you had 6 players on one server playing simultaneous missions that would eventually overlap. I don't know for sure, but I'm only going to assume that they probably had to cut some corners, make some sacrifices in order for the game to be presented in the way it is. And I mean, at the end of the day, the game looks beautiful. I don't want to change that. I would rather have the game we have now that performs consistently and pretty solidly, as opposed to like, I don't want to be playing like on 30 frames. You know what I mean? But that's a fun idea. If they can somehow work that out, or like get a bigger budget perhaps and increase I don't know the tech behind it really, but I mean, my game, I'm playing on a Series S, and I get like a somewhat consistent 50 to 60 frames. I could see it struggling big time if we had more players in the lobby, but
sure. But I mean, in my opinion, I guess kind of what I'm saying really is I think this game would be really dope if it had like raids,
Yeah.
And multiple teams kind of taking on various objectives. And, from a technical standpoint, I have no clue how that would work. And you're right. I'm sure there's, lots of reasons why it might be bad or there's limitations. But I'm just saying, conceptually, it seems pretty cool. And I actually did just pull up the roadmap, and we totally forgot to mention an added layer to this concern I had of content is I forgot that they're adding a horde mode at some point down the line. So, I think that alleviates some of the pressure as well, because I'm wondering if you're going to be able to have larger player counts for horde mode or how that's going to work. But I think that's going to add a lot of replayability.
Yeah, we were talking about it a little bit. We were playing with our buddy yesterday or 2 days ago in the operations. We were talking about the horde mode and like things they could possibly do. I'm hoping that it's going to be like a fully fleshed out horde mode, kind of like, like Call of Duty Zombies or like Gears of War, where it's not just like you're on a campaign level and there's just a bunch of enemies that keep coming at you. Like there's different aspects, there's different strategies. There's like you said something about building defenses. Like I mentioned something like calling in a dreadnought, which is like the mech looking guy you see in the campaign. Like if you could call in like tanks or something, that would be cool. Again, that might be pushing the tech, but I'm hoping that since, right now the horde mode is one of the last things that's on the current roadmap, that's probably going to be like, I would say maybe earliest, probably second quarter of 2025, but probably closer to third or even fourth quarter.
Yeah, it says season 4. I don't know how long they're anticipating seasons to last.
Well, hopefully it's the standard, like 60 to 90 days,
Yeah.
Hopefully. But the horde mode, I'm sure they'll come up with something fun. Again, even if it is just like kind of bare bones, but you're just like fighting waves of increasingly difficult enemies.
I feel
it'll be fun regardless, because that loop is already fun in this game.
Yeah, I feel like it'll be quite robust. Just based on a lot of what we've already seen, it seems like the attention to detail is quite good. And the level design, that's another just insane positive of this game is like, I don't know if I've seen a game with better set pieces than this game. And I think that's saying a lot. I mean, there's times when you actually just stop in the middle of a mission and you're just literally looking around like, oh yeah, holy shit. It's impressive. And I think, the performance for, the visuals they're putting out is a little hard for me to judge because on PC you have a lot of control over that.
Yeah.
But I think the performance has been quite, good. There are some issues. There were some more issues, I think, early on, but I think there's been a patch or two to kind of address some of the, I think it was a little too, I don't know if it was like CPU intensive or what, but it was kind of flip-flopped. And I think they've worked on optimizing it a little bit better for PC. But overall, performance has been pretty good and the visuals are great. I'm so excited to see, what comes. My biggest concern though is it taking too long. I think 90-day seasons might be I think that's a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking you should be like I kind of feel like 30 to 45-ish, because again, you're not, I don't know, but it's different than like, some of the traditional games we know with seasons, like battle royale games where like you got to give people time to achieve certain ranks, right? And then you have to have like a split and then blah, blah, blah. But like, this is not like that. This is just like fun.
Yeah. So
I don't see a reason to like draw it out. And I think that would be a bad thing if they did.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And there's no and we said this isn't really a live. It's a live. It isn't a live service game. It's kind of like a live service game in the way that like Halo 5 was a live service game. Like they had a roadmap and they had updates that came in, but they didn't have like battle passes or anything like that. And I don't foresee there being any battle passes added to this game. I hope there aren't. This game doesn't really need that. So yeah, if they are going to go with like a 60 to 90 day season, which is the norm now in most live service games, people aren't going to be grinding this game for like that long. I don't think especially if there's no like consistent progression besides like the progression that already exists in the game, and that is to get different armor pieces and unlock new weapons.
Well, it looks like from the roadmap they're adding like prestige ranks.
I do
Looks
see
like
that.
in season 3. I'll be honest, in this game I don't really care much about my rank and like that kind of stuff.
Well, I don't care about my level. I just care about my level because I want to get new shit.
Yeah. So I don't know what the incentive is to like have, increased levels or a prestige system or whatever it might be. I don't know what that would look like.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, I don't like that. Doesn't feel like content is like grinding more levels. I've really hated when games have done that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, well, look, we've increased the level cap from 500 to 1,000. Like, okay, but what are the levels doing?
Yeah, like is it worth the grind
that I already have a trillion of?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, what are you giving me in return? Like, you got to make the time commitment worth it. And we were praising this game for respecting the player's time, and it's still the case. And I think that's going to remain the case. I think this is a game, and I like this game enough where I'll put it down for a month maybe if I'm playing something else, but I'll gladly put it. I'll boot it back up as soon as there's a new update for it. Like, when that horde mode does get added eventually, like I will grind that. I'm already excited for that. I don't care like what games are out at the time. Like, I'm not going to forget about this game. I will come back to it and I will play specifically for that. But I do like that they're adding new modes for the PvP, new arenas in the PvP. It says arenas, so at least 2. I mean, hopefully more. They have 3 currently in the PvP, and they're fine. They're not. I mean, they're standard maps. They're good play spaces. But and the game modes, you have deathmatch or annihilation. You have King of the Hill, and you have basically domination, which are the standard kind of arena shooter game modes you have nowadays. I don't know what other modes they're going to add. I mean, there's a lot of references. Like, you could just look at any like Call of Duty game modes or like Gears of War game modes or Halo game modes. There's a few that would transfer well, I think. Maybe like a VIP mode or something where
like escort.
Escort mission. I'm thinking of like Overwatch when I think of like, or like even X Defiant as a more recent reference, but like those escort sort of modes, I think they're fun. And I actually do think a game like this would work really well. With the different classes,
with the abilities,
especially.
Yeah, exactly. It can happen, but again, it's like
what would be cool actually is a mode like that, but PVE, and you're just having to escort the payload or whatever through just waves and waves of enemies.
Yeah, kind of like a variation of Horde. Yeah, and that's why I really think the end game, so to speak, is really going to be them adding operations and then like building up a very robust horde mode. I think the PvP is going to be something that gets stale for people. I don't think they should neglect it by any means, but I also think that like a majority of their focus and resources, in my opinion, should go towards a lot of the PvE offerings, because I really do think this is a game that at the end of the day, I think you're drawn in for that, and the PvP is like a nice way to sort of like switch it up. But I'm not looking at the PvP as like the long-term play for me. I'm certainly not putting like hundreds of hours into the PvP. It's fun, but it's just not that for me.
Yeah. It's like right now it's pretty bare bones. It's limited, but it kind of, like I said, it reminds me of games that would come out back in the day. I know, like, obviously, like, after Gears 1, like, when Gears 1 released, like, I wanted to just play the story mode. I wasn't even, like, that aware of the multiplayer aspect of it, but obviously the multiplayer was fun, but it was, Gears 1 multiplayer was basic. It was just basically what we have in Space Marine 2. Just, deathmatch, and then elimination, and then maybe,
like execution. Yeah, like there were a couple different modes. They're all basically similar modes to any game that's had multiplayer. But I think that game was an entirely different game in the sense that like it was way ahead of like everything at the time. It was different than anything I'd ever touched. This is not quite that in terms of the novelty factor, but I do think it's got a great. I think the operations can be really special if they can just kind of continue to build on that.
Mhm.
And I think that's like for us, like that's where we had the most fun, in my opinion, is three of us just get together, like we're literally just cracking up during these missions. And like it's like they're hard, but they're not like frustratingly hard where like even when you die you're like, okay, whatever, like I don't know, like it didn't feel like it was pissing me off, although we didn't play we were like at the middle difficulty.
The difficulties in this game are interesting because the campaign difficulty and the operation difficulty are different. The operation difficulties are harder. Like the easiest operation difficulty is like maybe middle of the pack for campaign.
Yeah.
Like if you play I think it's called minimal. If you play minimal in the operations like solo, you're probably going to struggle a little bit. Like you're probably going to get knocked. You probably have to rely on your AI, but battle buddies to come res you. In a full squad of 3 like decent players, like it'll be a cakewalk probably. But I mean, we were struggling. We got down a few times playing the average. I think it's called average. But there's two harder difficulties that we haven't tried yet.
I liked it though. Like it felt like the challenge was right, in the sense that it made me like reevaluate, okay, maybe this isn't the right class for this mission, or maybe this is just not a class that fits my play style. So like it was just enough difficulty to make you kind of reassess and sort of strategize a little bit, which I think is nice. It didn't feel like there's some games where the difficulty just feels cheap.
Yeah.
Like they just crank up, like they're just bullet sponges, and then you get like one shot. Like it didn't feel.
There's like no ammo at all.
Exactly. Like artificial difficulty. Like it didn't feel like that. Again, we didn't scale it real high in terms of the difficulty, but at least where we were, it felt like challenging enough, but still fun. And I think that's the point, is like there's kind of something for everybody. And, it felt right. Like, I don't know. It's sort of hard to explain, but it didn't feel aggravating, which there's a lot of games where difficulty, like it does, if it pisses you off because it just feels so cheap.
Yeah, I get that. But the game is just like the game is just fun. It's not trying to be anything else but just over the top fun. And that plays into like not feeling frustrated, because at the end of the day, you're freaking swinging a hammer back and forth, taking out like 20 Xenos at a time. You're stomping them with your big feet. You're jetpacking into the air and landing on them like from 20 feet in the air. Just doing all sorts of crazy shit. So I think just the whole vibe of the game kind of lent itself to just having, even if you're struggling, you're still having a good time. I'm definitely nervous to try the higher difficulties. I've heard stories. They're adding another difficulty that'll be even harder. I can't imagine what that's going to be like.
What are they calling it? Lethal?
Lethal, I think.
Just like what?
Yeah, lethal difficulty. Yeah. I don't even know like what is going to change. Like, 'cause I'm pretty sure they don't like increase the health of the enemies. I think they might just increase the number of enemies and maybe like the tier of enemy. Like maybe there's more warriors instead of like just basic Xenos. Or like more of those floating things with the shields that shoot shoot the magic at you. I hate those things, and I think they do. Our friend did say like they limit the ammo. There's not as many like stims.
Yeah,
on the map.
Your resources are limited. Which that's a little bit to me like kind of artificially inflating the difficulty at times. But I mean, I get it. That's certainly not something that I'll be playing.
Well, I would love to try. I think we gotta at least try it.
Well, we'll try it for for the laugh, you know. Like, well, we walk into the first room and we just get mopped the fuck up.
But what's also really cool about the operations is like it's not like the perk system. Like, there's a robust perk tree for each class, and obviously, like you're meant to grind the lower difficulties to increase to gain XP and to progress your perk tree and like your weapon perks and everything. And then when you feel like you've done enough, you can move on to the more advanced difficulties. And I haven't gone through the entire like list for each class. Like I don't know exactly what perks you get, but from what I've unlocked so far, like some of them are pretty useful. They like give your teammates boosts, or like their ultimates refresh faster, or they get more ammo. So I do love that too. I think like that's a cool system where you can just level up your character to the point where, okay, now we can jump into like the higher difficulties, because even though our resources are limited, we're more powerful. Like we can still do this without as many resources because we just have better perks.
Plus, there is also like just a factor of getting kind of like there's a skill gap, like just getting better and more efficient with the combat.
Yeah.
There's a lot of timing mechanics which are good, and just generally understanding like the attacks of the different kinds of enemies, and sort of like the best way to clear certain kinds of enemies and stuff like that. And I think that's what's cool is there's a lot of layers to what I would call progressing, and you're free to do so, or you're free to just play it on an easier difficulty over and over and over again. And that can be fun too. So I really appreciate that there's this feels like there's a game that there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
Like truly, I know a lot of games will try to say that, but it doesn't feel that way. I do actually feel this game does hit that mark pretty well.
Yeah, no, I and the combat, like it's at the end of the day, it's just kind of it's not button mashing, but there is some layers to it, like the parrying system, which I've never been good at parrying, even back to like Assassin's Creed. Like I've never been good at parrying, but in this game they make it pretty clear. Like they have a big blue circular light when the enemy's attacking. Obviously, you have to still like look at the enemy's movements and then time it well, and then you get a really sick execution with your pistol. But like that's good. You can use that against bigger enemies, like bigger bosses too, and even like when the red light flashes, which is like an unblockable attack, you can still dodge perfectly and get an execution off that. So that just comes with repetition and getting better and better. And I mean, I've gotten a little better at it. I'm still not great, but I've definitely gotten better, and it just adds that extra kind of serotonin hit when you parry, when you time a perfect parry or a perfect dodge, and you're able to get an execution and get that bar of shield back. Like that's also what I love too. I love the shield system in this game, how it works, how you gain shields from executing enemies. Like you could be surrounded by enemies, but if you're able to execute a warrior or something, you can get a shield back, and that's clutch, and that can just be the difference in like being able to land a heavy attack and wipe out like the rest of the little Xenos that are surrounding you.
The combat system perfectly matches the way in which the enemies attack and interact. Like it's a system that rewards kind of timing and like chaining things together.
Yeah.
And like all the animations are pretty sick. But yeah, I mean, you parry one, you get an execution, and then your buddy's shooting another guy next to you and they're ready, then you execute them. And it's like there's a lot of nice kind of flow in the combat, especially when you kind of start to play more and kind of figure things out. And it just works perfectly for how the enemies tend to attack. It feels rewarding, like visually, again, because you get a lot of cool animations. It's not just, killing enemies. You're literally like, ripping their heads off and punting them. Like it's over the top, but it's great. And that's the thing I've liked too, is the combats felt like there's a lot that you can learn and perfect with it, but it's not so intricate and deep that you're that you're like searching for buttons or you feel lost. There's games where I think the combat goes a little too deep. And, with this being a game where you have blocking, shooting, and melee attacks, I wasn't sure how that was going to work. Like, it wasn't going to be too intricate, but it feels very much like you have enough control, but it's not too much. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot that the game kind of does take over for you at times, which I don't mind that.
No, I don't mind it either. And yeah, it's a very satisfying loop. I do appreciate when you're executing an enemy, like you can't get that canceled or anything. Like, even if you're getting hit by other guys, like, it doesn't matter. You're just going to go through with the animation anyway and not take any damage.
Mhm.
I also am very appreciative of the fact there's no friendly fire in this game, because I would have killed many of my battle buddies at this point if that were the case. I'm just swinging my big hammer around recklessly. You're like next to me executing someone, and I'm just like, and yeah, I mean, the lack of friendly fire is awesome. I do think that they are adding friendly fire to this lethal mode that's going to be coming out, which is going to be difficult, because there's a lot of just like, basically you're just in a giant pile of enemies with your buddies, just like trying to melee your way out or shoot your way out, and there's a lot of crossfire.
Well, I think the issue, at least for the way I play, is the grenade spam would be a problem, because I just send my grenades out there. So, yeah, I don't know if that's going to be a thing or not. It sounds like that could certainly be a way to add difficulty. And it does kind of sound like it would pair well with this lethal difficulty. But
Yeah.
I mean, we'll see. But I enjoy this combat for what it is. And I look forward to, kind of seeing what classes I gravitate towards more. Right now, I'm in the testing and trying phase. Seeing what classes fit my style and which ones are definitely not going to be something I'm going to play. Which I think I've eliminated sniper from my.
Really?
Well, not eliminated, but it's like it felt really good at certain times, but it also doesn't really match my play style, which is like I'm like brain rot.
You want to get in there and
just go in
right
swinging.
Yeah.
So clearly sniping is not really that.
You might be an assault guy or a grapple guy. I think I could see you wielding that hammer and just coming down from the heavens, just causing pure chaos.
I just like dropping the banner. I feel like a good team.
The banner. The bulwark's really good, actually.
Yeah.
Especially in PvE, but I was using it for the first time really today in PvP, and I finally figured out how to lift your shield. I wasn't sure, because when you sprint with the bulwark, you already have the shield up. I was like, you have to constantly keep sprinting, but if you just press on controller, if you press LB, he just raises the shield. It's actually, if there's one thing that should be nerfed, it's probably the shield for the bulwark, because it's kind of bullshit that you can have your shield up, but like your head is still exposed, and you shoot the head, and then they don't take damage.
I think for mouse and key, it's the same as the parry button. I don't know, is LB parry?
Yeah, it's LB's the parry button. And,
okay, it's the same then.
Which makes
it's
sense.
It's a block, basically, yeah.
But the bulwark's a lot of fun, and that's a good kind of team-centered class because of the shield banner that you put down, which is sick.
So what would you say is your favorite weapon then?
My favorite weapon? That's tough. I'm just going general game right now. It's got to be was it the melter, the shotgun, the melter gun. It's by far the most satisfying gun to use. I mean, per its name, it's basically a shotgun that shoots out just like lava and fire, and you're just incinerating your enemies, and you can take out like 10 enemies at a time with a perfect shot. It's so fun to use, and it's balanced too, because there's not a lot of ammo. So you got to be kind of pick your places to use it. Like, you might not want to use it just take out one guy. You might want to switch to your pistol and take out like the small guys, then use it for the bigger guys. Use it for like when you're getting surrounded to clear an area really quickly.
It also kind of like, because I agree that's my favorite weapon, but it also like sort of rewards you for kind of like training and drawing aggro with the enemies, right?
Yeah.
Like, so you get like a big horde of them that just chase you, and then you just blast off. And I think that's also what's cool about the combat is this game very much rewards you for fighting. Yeah. Like you said, you know what I mean? There's been so many times where we've been like so low on health, but like literally in the mix, like, I mean, deep in the shit. And like for the kills, you're getting some health and armor on kills, right? There's a lot of perks that, start to add up towards basically like killing heals you. And it's like you feel like you're about to die, but like you still get through the fight. Yeah. And it's really cool because it's one of those games where it actually penalizes you, in my opinion, for trying to like retreat or to play kind of like conservative or passive. I mean, I know like we were talking, there are people apparently that are just sprinting through the operations, going like right by the AI. But aside from doing that, I feel like it's not a great idea to run. And
Yeah,
why would you? I mean, it's just fun as hell to
I
just
know.
fuck
I
shit
know.
up.
And you can always again get shields from executing enemies. Like your health might get low, but you can get shields back pretty easily. At least in the PVE portion. Um, do you have a favorite class so far? You said sniper wasn't for you.
Yeah,
You
sniper
said
wasn't for me. Yeah, is it Bulwark that
shield guy with the banner.
yeah.
Okay.
I just like being in like a crazy situation and then just like putting the heels down for the boys.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
banner is just like a badass. I don't know. It's
It's
just
cool looking.
it's you know what I mean. It's not like a med box or something like
Yeah.
it's not like an orb. It's just a straight up like bam. You just slam that thing down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then there's like music in the background, like an orchestra kind of in the background when
Yeah.
you put it down, like horns going off.
It is kind of badass. I don't
Yeah.
know.
It's cool. For me, the one I've used the most, and I'm talking PvP, is the grapple class. For me, the grapple is kind of just feels a little out of place in this game, just because
Yeah.
like it's more of like a nimble sort of skill set, and you just don't feel nimble at all in this game, really. But it is really fun to use. I like being like kind of a flanker. So it's a great way to get around the map quickly and flank, and you can grapple your enemies to get closer to them. They get
Dude, I died
stunned.
so many times by
It's
that.
yeah, I mean it's if you're in a 1v1 and the guy uses that on you, like you're basically screwed. But what I do like, and this is one other aspect of the multiplayer, this is just for PvP, is the melee system.
Mhm.
There's no parry, which is a good thing. I think that would be toxic, and there'd be too much of a skill gap if that were the case.
You would literally have like duels.
Yeah, it would be.
It would
But
be
there is
going
kind
on
of
forever.
you can do that. You can kind of if you time your melees at the same time, they cancel each other out. So if you're just like you and your opponent are just swinging at each other, like you'll just be swinging for like a couple for like 10 seconds without doing any damage to each other. But their melee weapons bypass shields, so it just goes straight for the health. So a good way to like counter like the grapple guy is like hitting him with the melee, because he might want to shoot you and he has to break through your shields first to get to your health. And if you're just using a powerful melee weapon, you can pretty much kill him with like 3 hits.
Yeah.
And sometimes that TTK is a little faster. So I do like that. But yeah, the grapple guy is by far my favorite. I saw some clips of people like luring people off the map or like falling off the map, and then they grapple their way back on. It's just a fun little class, and the gun they give you is pretty good too. It's like just a basic assault rifle. But my second favorite is probably, and I like the sniper, but not for the sniper rifle. I like it for the cloak, and there is a loadout. You can equip an SMG, and the crack grenades at level 12, which are the sticky grenades, and these crack grenades are very like the skill gap's very low. They basically have magnetism to the enemies. If you throw them in their general direction, it'll just magnetize to them. So I just love using the cloak, going behind like a group of enemies, getting in there, throwing the crack grenade at them, and just having them explode. It's almost it won't one hit someone. It'll get them like basically no health, and you just like shoot them once with your gun, they're dead. But it's just a good way to kind of troll people.
Yeah, there you go. That's your play style.
Yeah, I do love being the troll.
I think my other favorite class would be heavy. Having the bubble shield's always dope, and I like that minigun. There's like when you like ADS it and you just get like that crazy fire rate, and like you're just peppering down people's shields for the rest of your team to just finish. I don't know, like it feels like a nice team play class, and that's kind of where I feel in this game. I'm not usually like the team guy, but like I feel like with the way the movement is, it does kind of lend itself towards team shooting
for sure, definitely,
and flanking, and the maps are not huge, which is great. But yeah, the team shooting is important, and I've gotten caught out alone plenty of times, and you're not going to win a 1v2 in this game.
No, you're not. The time to kill is pretty quick. Heavy is good. Heavy is great in PvE and PvP. is probably a little more useful in PvE, but it's still very good in PvP. But yeah, definitely gotta stick with your team in this game. I mean, unless you're the flanker, but you can't really just go off the beaten path. Like if your team's not working together, or like team firing, you're screwed.
Yeah,
you need to be together.
Maybe that's why all my games were lopsided.
Yeah, maybe you're not a team player,
or maybe they're not team players.
All right, let's end here with a couple of, I guess, what we don't like about the game, because we've kind of just been glazing the game for the last almost hour, and there's really not a lot of negatives I have for the game. I think this game is like pretty damn near not perfect, but it's fucking great. Like I love this game. It's restored my faith in gaming in general, and like, oh, we can have games like we did back in the day.
Yeah.
But
so what is it that you don't like?
Yeah, so a couple of the negatives I have, I know there's one that we both have because it affects us directly. But one thing that is kind of strange to me, but I think I understand why it's not in the game, is an FOV slider, which field of view, and I guess FOV is more important for like a first-person shooter, but even for a third-person shooter, it would be nice to have the option to expand the FOV just so like I can see more. But I get why it's not in the game. I guess it's for performance, because the higher FOV, the worse your performance will be. And I'm guessing that they found that the default FOV they figured was the most optimal, I guess, for performance, and then you can see enough around you. Actually, when I'm playing, I don't really feel like I need one. I just think like having it in the game would be nice, and it's just strange to have a shooter that doesn't have that option these days.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like a little nitpick. It could be added down the road. I don't know. It's not something that like I need to love the game even more, but it would be nice to have that option for some people, because some of these characters, like not some of the classes more than others, are more bulky, take up more of the screen. But I don't know. It's more of a nitpick, if anything. What do you have? Do you have any negatives? You probably have the same one I have here.
Yeah, what we're both going to say is we found out that there is no console and PC crossplay on the PvP, which is
dumb.
One of the things where I can see the argument, I can like understand the reason why, but I don't think that it's necessary. No. It's a balancing thing, right, with the different inputs, and also, console people don't want to right, like PC people are cheaters, or whatever, right? You feel like you're letting cheaters into your lobbies, kind of thing. I think the way you counteract that is like how most games are: is you allow it to be on by default, and then if I don't want to play with PC, right, you turn off like PC console crossplay, like right, something like that, yeah. Or you just break it like Ryan did. No, but I mean, I think that's honestly like give the players the choice. I know that starts to fuck with the queues and everything in the lobbies, because now you're just splitting more and more groups up. I get that, but at the end of the day, like, this is not going to be a competitive multiplayer scene. It's just not. Yeah. And sure, there's some competitive advantages and disadvantages of both controller and mouse and key, right? That's an age-old discussion, but for this game, just let it happen. I just want to play with the boys. It's kind of, I don't know. It's
a bummer.
It was a shocker, and
yeah.
It does just feel like kind of like a doozy. Like, what the hell?
Yeah, I was very shocked, because I didn't hear anything about there being no crossplay for PvP for PvP. I knew there was crossplay. I just assumed it transferred to the PvP, and when we couldn't play, I was like, whoa, that's very strange. I thought maybe it was like maybe a glitch, or maybe it's something they're adding, but I haven't seen any news about them adding that or changing that at all. Which, yeah, I mean, listen, like, this game, it's like, it could have a competitive scene. Like, if they want to add a ranked mode eventually or something, like, I could see that. But then, if that's the case, that can have no crossplay. But I think, like, for public matches, like for the casual matches, just enable it, or give you the option to at least play it. Because, is there anything in this game that, like, there's nothing in this game that I could see, like, oh my god, PC is going to have such an advantage over console in this regard. Besides maybe overall frames and performance.
I think what frustrates me the most with it, though, is that like 70% of the game is PC console crossplay, and then there's like, you know what I mean? It's like, in my opinion, it should be all or nothing. I feel like it's misleading to say like, oh, there is PC console crossplay, but not for just this third of the game.
Yeah, no, and the fact that I hadn't heard of, and I've been like, I was looking into this game pretty heavily leading into the release. I didn't see anyone talk about this, so was very surprised, and it just seems unnecessary. It seems unnecessary. I don't think there is a specific thing in this game. I think like, are you playing on controller? Or are you playing on mouse and key?
For this, mouse and keyboard.
Okay. I mean, I don't think aim assist is too egregious in this game. I feel like when you're up close, it's obviously more powerful, but like mid-range fights, like there's not a ton of it, at least. I don't think there is, but maybe I'm in the minority there. But and none of the abilities, like I could see maybe like Assault getting a little spammy on PC, but I don't know. I just want to be able to play with you on PvP because we'd have a lot of fun running games together, but it's disappointing.
Maybe they'll add it down the line. Who knows? It doesn't sound like it's something that's being mentioned, but I guess that's wishful thinking. But do we have any other comments about Space Marine 2? I think we touched on quite a bit here.
Yeah, I don't really have any other negatives. Progression takes a while, but that's fine. I'm okay with that. It's all in-game currency. Everything's free. We didn't really talk about the customization at all. If you want to take a minute about the customization,
actually, you're right. I didn't touch on that. I don't think I've had as much time on that, but I know you can definitely talk about that a bit.
Well, we glanced at it. I mean, there is a robust customization mode in this game, or there's a lot of options. At least, like it brings me back to like the Halo Reach days, where you could customize like every piece of armor. Like it's great. Like you can change your colors. You can change like individual colors, like the color of your helmet, the color of your arms, your chest, your legs. There's not just like one color and that's your color. Like you can get pretty fancy with it. Pretty creative with it. And the aesthetics in this game look great. Like I love all the different helmets, all the different like armor pieces and everything. And there's a lot. There's a really healthy amount of options, and there is no store, as we mentioned, and everything is just earned in game. The more you play, you get more points, and you can customize your guy. And there's a lot of options. I was surprised by that. I was kind of overwhelmed by all the different colors and different pieces of armor you could unlock. I was like, this is great.
Well, I think that's what's cool too, is it's not just changing like shaders, it's like actual different armor sets. And then within that, you can, mix and match different, like you said, helmets, shoulder pads, whatever it may be. Yeah. But I think it's an interesting system where it's one of the few games that I found where the grind is really actually in the cosmetic customization, right? Because most of the points, I mean, it's either, you have to make a decision, right? Am I spending it towards, looking like a boss or playing like a boss, because you can use it for like perks and weapon upgrades and stuff like that. So, I mean, it is pretty unique in the sense it makes you pick between like vanity and functionality, especially early on, when you're limited on your resources. But it is very in-depth, and I can appreciate that. That's about as much of the grind as there is, oh, you know what? Like I want to start, unlocking this or that, piece or this colorway. Like, I got to work towards that or something like that. So it's neat.
So they do separate the PvE progression with the PvP. So PvP, I think your colors and like armor pieces transfer over from PvP to PvE, but like your perks, obviously, if you just grind the PvP, you're not going to get any points for perks in the PvE, which I'm fine with that. I don't have anything. There's nothing wrong with that in my opinion. But it even makes it, there's even more incentive to play longer. So, I'm going to grind this game to get some of those armor pieces and perks because I do want to be able to play at the higher difficulties in the PvE, and I do want to look fucking cool in PvP. So, I think it's a good balance. And yeah, I mean, I can't really say much more about this game. I think it's great. It's blown away my expectations. And even the campaign itself was a lot of fun. Like it was a really good like story, really fun set pieces, great mission structures. I guess your nitpick would be there's too many elevators and too many buttons.
Yeah, fuck those elevators.
There are a lot of
how many
elevators in this game.
goddamn elevators, and how many of those freaking buttons do I have to press? It's the same button for everything, every door, every elevator.
It's the same button.
Get some new buttons.
Yeah, but listen, I'd rather have that than just like loading screens each time. So
I know they're artificial loading screens. It's whatever. But if that's the biggest gripe I have, then I think the game's pretty damn good.
Exactly. Great. Well, any other comments from you or anything about the game?
No. If I had to give this an actual rating, I'm gonna call Space Marine 2 as a whole 8 out of 10.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm about the same there. 8 out of 10, and that score will probably get better with the content coming out. We'll see what stuff they add, how good it is, and by the end of by a year from now, this could be a 10 out of 10 game. Who knows?
Could be. I will say this: first game in a while where I haven't regretted my purchase, even slightly. Right? There's there's been a lot of games recently where I've spent the money kind of knowing that this is probably going to be like a week thing at best. So this does not feel like that.
Yeah, me too. I've got my money's worth. If I just stop playing after today, I've got my money's worth. I'm very happy with it. Well, yeah, so that was our discussion on Space Marine 2. Chris and I are huge fans of the game, and if you've played Space Marine 2, please let us know in the comments your thoughts. Let us know your favorite guns. Let us know your favorite classes, and give us any tips and tricks in the comments that you have for us, because we've been playing a good amount, but we're still pretty green when it comes to this and just the Warhammer universe in general. But yeah, that's the episode. We release every Wednesday at 10 a.m. You can catch us on Spotify, Twitter/X, Twitter, Instagram at 5 o'clock sweats, Apple Podcasts, wherever else you listen to your podcasts at 5 o'clock sweats. And as always, stay sweaty.
Stay sweaty.